Hi YouTube, I'm Nick North. I am a big boy with big feelings. And for my first YouTube video, I would like to talk about someone a little bit controversial. His name is Boogie2988, is the kind of string of numbers at the end there. Before we get into that, I just have a few disclaimers, just so that we're all kind of on the same page. First and foremost, Boogie is famous for a lot of things, one of which is being overweight and his weight loss journey. I don't really support like appearance or weight loss jokes or anything like that, because let's be honest, there's a lot more to criticize about him than just that. So we're going to avoid that today. And also, he's kind of been on the internet for like a really long span of time. Like, he has had a lot of controversies in the past, and to avoid making this video 5 hours long, I am going to only focus on the most new controversy and kind of what we can gather from that. Secondarily, I please forgive the gamer headset and the warehouse lighting, for lack of a better term. I plan on changing all of that soon, but until then, we're just gonna Buffalo Bill rough it up together, and that's gonna be a fun time for everyone. So, with that out of the way, let's get into who Boogie is. Boogie is a content creator who got famous because of his Francis series, which was basically a few different types of videos lampooning the idea of like the traditional gamer, in kind of humorous ways. Obviously, his weight and just kind of his general appearance kind of lent itself to that, so he decided to capitalize on that. Love that for him. No problems, hypothetically, with that. Since then, he's kind of had numerous controversies, including aggravated assault, dating a 21-year-old, and what we'll be talking about today. So, I was scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on Twitter, having a good old time, and I came across this tweet from Boogie that says, "Hot take: video games are supposed to be fun, not lectures about why being a white man is bad." And then he links to this YouTube video. I've already watched it for you, so you don't have to be put through all of that. Where basically he says that there is a influx of forced diversity content, whatever the fuck that means. And he's specifically talking about like one game studio, who made the new Suicide Squad game, which last time I checked features exactly one woman and one person of color, and a shark, I guess. So, another win for diversity. And he really just continues to milk this for like the next few days. Like, it's already a pretty dog shit opinion, and so people continue to give him crap for it online. And they keep saying things like, "Oh, like, what are examples of this?" Or, "Oh, Boogie's trolling again," which we'll examine in a little bit. But whenever people ask for examples, he just says something along the lines of like, "Well, there are some, and if you look hard enough, you can find them," without having any like actual examples. In fact, he comes up with a few examples of how, like, when it's done correctly, which that's something that I think is a good time to touch on. Boogie describes himself as a liberal, which would be hypothetically fine if he didn't also consider himself a gamer. which, as a gamer myself, they have pretty interesting opinions, we'll call it. And so he kind of likes to toe this line where he makes everybody happy, and or at least tries to, and in the end product ends up making no one happy. And so there's this kind of confusing nature to Boogie where you never really know how he feels about things. You never really know kind of where his true intentions lie. And I think part of that is accidental, and part of that is intentional. I think there is a part of him that really enjoys being everyone's friend. He's even described himself as like the Mr. Rogers of YouTube, which is insane to fucking describe yourself as that. Considering I don't think Mr. Rogers made a career out of shooting people and talking about why diversity is wrong. I don't think those were the lessons on his show. So he continues to milk this for like the next few days. People are of course commenting things about his weight, about his past controversies. He even made like and of course he uses those as like ammunition to say like the left is so fucked. It's so intolerant. It's so demagogic, if that's even a word. Basically to say like a kind of like woe is me narrative for having like a pretty fucked opinion. And then he continues to like capitalize off of this by making a shirt that says like video games are supposed to be fun, and making all of these other tweets that are like video games are supposed to be fun, video games are supposed to be fun, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And what pisses me off about that, what is like so inherently frustrating about that concept to me, is that that's not what anyone had a fucking problem with. Like, not to fucking mansplain logical structure, but if you're not familiar with it, whenever you come up with like a logical statement, there's like the premise and the conclusion. And in this case, the premise is video games should be fun, and the kind of conclusion is basically that somehow that diversity is making it an attack on white men, and that's not making it fun. That's kind of the logical meat there. And so then to go and say like, well, people disagree with the premise. They just don't think video games are supposed to be fun. Those little dumbasses, they just think that video games are supposed to be little lectures. They like they like going to fucking class in their free time about like gender equality and shit. Which like is just it's so frustrating, because there is no part of that where like anyone would ever disagree that video games are supposed to be fun. Like, no fucking shit. And then he kind of makes a few tweets the day that I'm filming this, actually, where he kind of talks about how the demographics of video gamers is mostly white men anyway, so therefore you should want to kind of pander to them, I guess. Like, you should want to represent the audience you have. And I have a few issues with this right off the bat. A, they already fucking do. Like, if it weren't just terrible storytelling to have every single character be a straight white male, they would absolutely do that. Abso-fucking-lutely. They would have just 100 playable characters, and they would all be guys named fucking Trent or fucking David. And he kind of uses that, like, uses the gamer tendency to like try to say that people's attempts at forced diversity are not working, that the audience for video games is exactly the same as it's always been, fucking white guys who kind of look like me. And the kind of ethos that he's saying is that, like, okay, well, now we can just stop trying to be diverse. And it's like, no, that's not the takeaway here. I think the takeaway is, like, maybe the audience for gamers isn't changing because fuckheads like you come online and are like, oh, my video games have a single black character and a single woman in it, and now it's fucking making me feel like an awful person, I guess, because I don't know any of those people in real life. And also, the fucking, like, the headache-inducing part of this logic to me is that if your gripe, according to him, is that diversity in games is done poorly, right? Like, he says hypothetically that he doesn't mind diversity being done well. He just doesn't like when it's shoehorned in and brings up, like, a trans character who, like, in passing reveals that they're trans, which trans people don't owe you outing themselves at all times. Fucking shocker. But okay, your issue is with people not doing diversity well in video games. Why do you think that happens? Just general question. I'll tell you why it happens. It's because people who are not necessarily members of those diverse cultures are the ones writing these characters. And so you end up having, like, a bunch of executives who even let's entertain the idea that they're like, we need to have more diverse people in our games. Like, and if you don't, you're gonna be fucking fired or whatever. Even if that were the case, they're doing the lazy work by not hiring people from those diverse backgrounds or people with the experiences that they want to represent. And the end result there is the kind of shitty byproduct that you're talking about. I feel like I also have to go on the record and say, as a video gamer myself, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But also, I like to play good games, and maybe he doesn't. So that could explain it a little bit. And so, like, how do you not see the cycle of, like, diversity is handled poorly by these fucking white executives and their team who isn't taking the time to handle it properly, hypothetically. And then the end result is that you guys aren't happy because you think it's, like, shoehorned in or whatever. And then also, because it's not coming from, like, an authentic place, or it's not coming from a place of, like, truth, it's not really working on audiences, and they're not really being attracted to these game titles. So, like, hypothetically, what you should be annoyed at is the fucking executives who are making all of these decisions, but you're instead choosing to like go for um, female game executives and cases where people are being shown as trans or different ethnicities, and trying to say that like that's bad. And the kind of inherent issue with that is that like you're limiting the amount of representation that could happen anyway by saying like by telling the video game executives basically, well, I just don't want to see trans people. I just don't, unless they are, because they can't be a main character. If they're a main character, that means that I wouldn't want to play it. And if they're a side character, unless they're being written completely perfectly, which video games do not have a great record of doing that anyway, then we're gonna have issues, and that is gonna be not okay in Boogie's book or whatever. And it's so frustrating to me, because once again the fucking bad guy is like the rich CEO who's making all these stupid fucking decisions, and yet the one who has to pay the bill is all the fucking minorities that just get shit on by people like Boogie, or the online community of gamers that he reports to, I guess. And so I was consulting with a friend about making this video, and I was like, oh, I'm thinking about covering Boogie. And he's like, well, don't you know that guy's just like a troll, right? And Boogie loves to do this thing that is pretty common among like gamers or like just straight white guys who say a bunch of like controversial shit. It has been lovingly referred to as Schrodinger's asshole, although I don't think I can say that on YouTube. Where basically it is a joke if you don't react to it well, but if you do react to it well, then I fully intended it the entire time. And Boogie basically has that personality trait. There's a wonderful YouTube channel called The Right Opinion that does a whole segment about this and his opinion on gay marriage, which is it's interesting. He basically says that like we need to wait on gay marriage until people are more cool with it, which is like fucking not how that works, man. But either way, he basically does the same thing here, where he's like, video games are bad, they shouldn't be lectures on whatever. And then in the meantime, he kind of waits for the public's reaction and then decides to say if he's like being a troll or not. So in that tweet that we discussed earlier, where he says that the majority of video games are still purchased by white men and all this stuff, he says like another hot take, and I actually believe this one too. And so like, let's talk about the ecosystem, the fucking ecosystem of consequences here, where basically you get to say like, oh, I have all these hot takes and I have all of these controversial opinions, or even let's throw in like I'm trolling here, right? Like I'm trying to get one over on them. Well, here's the end result: is that people trolling is like, I'll throw up the fucking definition here. It is like the intent to get people mad at whatever it is that you're like pretending to feel or pretending to care about. And so when people get mad at you, and Boogie's been on the internet for a long time, right? So he knows at this point that when people get mad at him, they're going to talk about his weight, they're going to talk about his financial situation, they're going to talk about the fact that he's dating a 21-year-old, which, like, to me is like, those are the fucking least of his issues, honestly. Um, and he kind of always has this mentality of like, the like woe is me of it all. Like, when people kind of give him backlash, then he'll be like, yeah, you're right, I do suck, and I do, deserve everything that's happening to me, whatever. And it's just like, how far in your cycle, right? Like, how many times does this have to happen before you realize, if I do troll or I do try to have fun, that the end result is going to be that you are just getting fucking shit on by all of the internet. And I have accepted the fact that there's a possible reality, maybe even a probable reality, that he does understand this, and he does either use this for some like sick masochistic like desire, which, like, if that's your thing, man, fucking awesome, love that for you, I guess. But at least, like, let people know that that's the vibe. Like, fucking pay someone to insult you then. Like, or there's like the idea that he's like doing all of these things for internet attention, um, which I would be worried about giving to him if my channel was anything. But as it stands now, I think there is a pretty high possibility, just because of his financial situation, that is what's kind of motivating him to do this. But the question that I have for the audience at home, the ones who are like fucking taking notes on Nick of the North's logical theories, if you consider yourself the Mr. Rogers of YouTube, and yet your entire persona, your platform, is based off of milking the most like vitriol you can get out of people, like, are you really okay with that? Like, that just seems, it seems really fucking sad to me. Personally, like, it seems like you just become a poster child for like being a punching bag. And I think you see that reflected in a lot of comments on his subreddit and things about discussing him and stuff, is that he seems to kind of like wallow in this self-deprecation, in this sadness. He almost markets himself as pathetic a little bit, which I think is depressing as hell. Like, have some fucking confidence in yourself, my guy. And I get, like, not everyone has that, but I think what strikes me the most about Boogie is that there was at one time a lot of people who really enjoyed his content, who really thought he was a good person, and I'm not really in the business of saying like if someone is or is not a good person, whatever that means. But I do think that what he's done is he's created a reputation of wasted potential. And as Jared Carmichael says,
Like, I hate wasted potential. That shit crushes your spirit.
so where does that leave us? What do we do with that information? Good question. I think honestly the best thing to do is to just kind of ignore people like Boogie. And I know the hypocrisy of that statement by making a whole video about him, but the truth is that interacting with him is just going to make you sad. Like there's something to be said about trolling or banter with your audience that is fun nature, where you're all like kind of in on the bit, right? But scrolling through Boogie's tweets and even just looking into his history is just it is a typhoon of sadness. So I'm in the business of of stopping toxic cycles. So this will most likely be the last time I cover Boogie. And honestly, I just kind of want to forget he exists. And like, I know that that's kind of harsh, right? Because it's like, this person obviously built a platform and all this stuff, but I think the best way for Boogie to reach true happiness, whatever that looks like for him, is to get offline. Maybe find like a fucking hobby that's not just video games. And to stop fucking milking this whole like lolcow controversial internet person vibe. Like I just don't think that's gonna get you what you want. And so the lesson of today's video for you all at home is think about what you really want, and think about if what you're doing to get it is actually going to get you that. And yeah, I hope to have hopefully a more uplifting video in the future. But for a phoenix to rise, there's got to be ashes. You know what I mean? Fucking corniest shit in the world. All right, bye.